Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very happy to have you in this session of the Economic Days of the Ministry of Economics. We are going to admit guests. Yeah, currently we have, I see, 44 guests in the meeting. Allow me to do that in the background with admission of guests. Yeah, and we would love you to mute your mics and to switch off your cameras. The other house rule I want to share with you is this session is going to be recorded, and there's going to be an interactive session. Yeah, that means we are going to have a panel discussion towards the end of this session. So if you have questions to any of the presentations, kindly use the chat function. We will add your questions, and our moderator towards the end, Mr. Rohaim of the Germany Trade and Invest, he's going to take your questions and to ask the panelists. Having said that, I would like to ask my colleague May Khattab. We want to share a very short video with you as long as we are continuously admitting guests. Just to bridge the time, this 1.5 minutes until we start the official session. And kindly mute your microphones. Thank you indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, our trailer, you find various of our trailers on the AHK website. Welcome to this session. We are going to talk about Egypt, but not only Egypt as a bridge between Africa and the Middle East. I have the great pleasure to moderate this session until the panel discussion. My name is Jan Noether. I'm looking after the affairs of the German Arab Chamber of Industry and Commerce, being based in Cairo, and with me there are exceptional panelists today, and I'm very happy to introduce them as they are going to speak. May Khattab, may I request you to get this presentation up, please? So let me get right into it. It's my pleasure to share with you a few economic data, economic developments. I'm going to make that brief since I don't want to duplicate the other panelists. However, you'll see now in a second the presentation, the slides coming up. I hope coming soon. Let me start to talk about it. Egypt was quite successful in the year 2020, and the GDP ranks number 34, previous year number 40. Right behind Norway and before the United Arab Emirates. We are in the background. We are trying to share our screen in order to get, now it's coming, now to get the presentation up. Egypt, despite of the global economic setback in the aftermath of the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus, the Egyptian economy showed a considerable degree of resilience through the authorities' immediate responses with relevant monetary and fiscal measures to mitigate the crisis, anticipated a negative. That's not the one, my dear. Yeah, you will have to check which one we are going to show, please. So let me continue as long as we try to get that fixed in the background. Yeah. So the immediate responses of the authorities with relevant monetary and fiscal measures to mitigate the crisis anticipated negative impact on the economy by increasing the aggregate demand while maintaining the stability of the financial system and being the outside monitor of the development in Egypt. Yeah, I can assure you it worked. Egypt is committed to continuing a steady economic reform program, which is implemented in cooperation with the International Monetary Fund. The reform program is focusing on fiscal consolidation, supporting social safety nets, and promoting private sector-led growth. Allow me to say Egypt's economic growth rate of the past year, as you know, Egypt was one of the years one of the few countries to show positive economic growth. This is mainly based on three reasons. First, the swift policy response of the Egyptian government to COVID-19 challenges by imposing lockdown measures that allow businesses to continue their activities. Secondly, the still low integration of the Egyptian economy into global value chains, hence the limited exposure to corona-induced supply chain interruptions. Last not least, the recovery of oil prices helped, as did the extensive infrastructure program of the Egyptian government. Main drivers of the growth were government-induced infrastructure development, as mentioned just now, local consumption, remittances from Egyptians living abroad, and just to give you an idea of that figure, in the past year, that was $28 billion US. That is double of a regular year of tourism in Egypt. Tourism was hit hard. Tourism contributed 3.2 billion. The Suez Canal 5.8 billion. On a side note, Suez Canal is open again, as all of you know. 5.8 billion the Suez Canal contributed in 2020. And the private sector showed resilience. The communication sector grew by more than 15%. Logistics, finance, agriculture, retail between 5 and 3%. If we go to the next one, please. The exports for the first 11 months last year were 22.2 billion. If I extrapolate these figures, that there was a slowdown given compared to previous year of around 13%. And the imports first 11 years were 58 billion, a slowdown of 10 years compared to the previous year. However, this slide for me, very important to show you the biggest importer into Egypt, the by far biggest importer, I have to say, was China, contributing 15%. Germany, excuse me, ranked number 3, contributed 5.8%. To all imports into Egypt. And as most of you know, the German brand shines in Egypt. Egypt is very much identifying with Germany, and wherever quality is one of the central measures, Germany is going to be the country to be used. Next, please. German exports into Egypt, so mainly vehicles, 17.3% of the overall imports into Egypt from Germany. Machines, spare parts contributed 14%, medical, pharmaceutical products 6%, and electrical machines 5.5%. The imports from Egypt into Germany, petroleum products were 35.5%, vegetables and fruits, so agricultural products 17.8%, clothing and accessories around 11%, and yarns, woven fabrics. As you know, Egypt produces the best cotton in the world. Contributed 7%. Now, next slide. Egypt sets benchmarks, for future growth. As you've heard, there are lots of mega projects like mega city, Phones. May I kindly request you to mute your microphones, please? Thank you indeed. So mega cities, industrial zones, infrastructure roads, railway, seaports, agricultural, land recovery programs. So lots of topics are happening simultaneously in Egypt, which makes Egypt very interestingly, and we will hear from our panelists in a couple of minutes, what does that mean for Egypt if it comes to Egypt and the region, whether it's Mid East or whether it's Africa. Allow me to just give you an example of the new capital. Yeah, you've heard that, but what you may not know is that this capital has a size, covers an area of 725 square kilometers. So this is a naked figure, 725. If I tell you that Hamburg, being the second biggest city in Germany, covers an area of 755 square kilometers, you can get it a little bit into perspective. So this city will, in the end, occupy 6.5 million people, will have 21 residential areas, 650 kilometers of road, and an international airport. So you'll see that is a very, very massive project. However, it may help in order to ease the decision-making processes in Egypt, since there is going to be an administration area. So that means all the relevant ministries are moving into this area, and they are going to be interconnected, which leads to fast decision-making, which speeds up, of course, then approval schemes as well. And that certainly helps the private sector and international investments into Egypt. If we go to the next, and that's going to be already the last one from my end, you hear a lot of the new customs law. There is a new customs law, and there are new customs regulations, advanced customs information, ACI. We already ran a couple of webinars with a couple of hundred visitors. We are going to have another one in due course. My colleagues are going to share the link to that session, since it's very important to German exporters to know about that. Just a brief, since I know that Silke Bobken, our representative from Lufthansa, is talking about that in a minute. Just a brief, it's going to be implementation of a single window system, facilitating customs procedures, and the goal of the government is to cut down 25 average days currently for customs clearance procedures, to cut that down to 5 days. You'll see already the link in our chat, if you want to copy that. So now that's all from my end. It's my great pleasure. Let the experts talk. It's my great pleasure to introduce to you Engineer Hoda Manzour. She has been appointed as SAP Managing Director for Egypt in 2018, with an expanded responsibility to also cover Lebanon, Jordan, Yemen, Sudan, and Palestine in 2020. She is responsible for driving SAP's growth plan, including sales, marketing, operations, P&L, in addition to leading the efforts to drive SAP's global education and training programs to help expand the digital ecosystem in these countries. In the last 3 years, her region achieved its best performance ever since the company establishment, even during the very tough year of COVID. Forbes acknowledged her leadership by recognizing her as one of the top 100 most influential women in the Middle East in 2018 and 2020, and as one of Forbes' top 50 power business women. We are happy to have her as one of our esteemed board members. And Hoda is now talking about the role of Egypt for the Middle East region. Hoda, it's my great pleasure to pass the floor to yours.
Thank you very much, Jan, for the very warm welcome, and thank you for the guests for joining us today. It's an honor and pleasure to be part of this panel discussion. I would be talking about the importance of Egypt for the Middle East region and for Africa as well. So if we can please move to the following slide. I would like to start first by stating some key facts. including to give perspective basically on the size of Egypt and the importance of Egypt. If you look at Egypt from a population perspective, at the moment we have in excess of 100 million of population. 60% of the population are below the age of 30, which basically shows that we have a great asset in the youth and the talents that are available in the market. We have around 2.7 million of students who are enrolled in the education system, and we have 60 plus universities and academies and institutions in Egypt that are operational. Egypt as a country is very highly regarded amongst the key Gulf and African countries, and we're seen as per the international view that we are a key pillar to the stability of the countries that are sitting around us. GDP growth has climbed, as Jan has mentioned, by 3.6% last year. The expected growth this year is 5.4%. Egypt was one of very few countries that had and enjoyed a growth last year during the year of the pandemic. I believe that this was very clear because of the plans that was put ahead by the government to act very quickly to the danger and the challenges that we all faced with the pandemic. Inflation rates have also been reduced, which led to an enjoyable environment for the foreign direct investments to invest in the country. If we look at the following slide, please, we'll be talking about some key facts related to Egypt as a geographical position and also from capabilities from internet and communication infrastructure. So Egypt is in fact a hub for internet submarine cables. We have 17 cables transmitting through the country, and Egypt is second only to the US in terms of the number of submarine cables that is crossing the country. This accounts for around 17% of the world total submarine connectivity cables. Egypt is also getting very closer to becoming a regional energy hub, exporting its excess of production of natural gas and facilitating exports from neighboring countries. It has also embarked on several projects connecting electricity grids of Arab and African and European countries. Egypt is positioned to become an energy leader also in the region with a production capacity of 55 gigawatts average consumption in around 20 gigawatt and connecting 7 countries and exporting to Sudan, Jordan, Palestine, and in the neighboring countries. If you please move to the next slide. If we look at the digital transformation scene, there were several big projects in terms of digital transformation with the sponsorship from the Minister of ICT, from the Prime Minister, and from the Egyptian President themselves. The whole idea about digital transformation is providing the right environment for the citizens and for the private sector and the public sector to operate. There was high political support at the president level for such transformation. There were several mandates that have been announced by the president and led by the central bank governor and the Minister of Finance to mandate financial inclusion and transparency. There was also a big focus on the Vision 2030 program from Egypt that was led by the Minister of Planning. Some of the several mega projects that have been worked on, there have been improvements in the quality of roads. So at the moment, Egypt enjoys the second position in Africa when it comes to the quality of roads, and a big improvement in 2019 to reach the 28th place in the roads quality globally, thus allowing a good infrastructure also to establish businesses. If we look at the other digital transformation projects that were really of impact, we will find a new plan for the taxation system, including the invoice and e-receipt that would help the Ministry of Finance have total transparency in how the businesses are submitting their invoices and how businesses are conducted at large in Egypt, and also ensure that there is a combat on the tax evasion. By collecting the right taxes, then the government would be able to sponsor bigger projects and cause a lot of and lead with a lot of innovation in the market. There have been also focus on establishing several T3 data centers in the country, which is currently under implementation. There is a complete revamp in the healthcare management system, which is basically led by the Ministry of Higher Education and the Ministry of ICT to transform the university hospitals across the country to ensure that with the digital transformation that will be provided, this will support a good healthcare system in the country and hence a better life for the citizens. The Suez Canal corridor as a logistics hub is of higher importance, and now we've seen it's even a higher importance during the last incident that happened a few weeks ago. Ministry of Housing is also planning to build 14 smart cities all over Egypt with smart infrastructure, and there is a big plan to transform the living conditions of more than 50% of the lives in the rural areas through program Haya Karima. If we can please move to the following slide, we will see that the Central Bank of Egypt has taken responsibility for promoting and coordinating financial inclusion in Egypt in a very serious manner, and considered it as a strategic objective that has to be reached and can be pursued alongside its primary objective of ensuring a stable and sound financial system. With the government of Egypt's launch of the Sustainable Development Strategy, Egypt's Vision 2030, financial inclusion has become a national priority. And to that end, we will find that the Ministry of Finance is working very closely with the Central Bank of Government to ensure that, together, of course, with the support of the Ministry of ICT, that the internet penetration and mobile penetration, mobile payments is available within the market, and mobile payments in the Egyptian industry is also expected to reach more than $22 billion by 2025, which is a massive number. I would like also to highlight in the following slide that the startup ecosystem in Egypt is considered to be a technology hub for Africa and the Middle East. We have several government-led initiatives to support the startup community and ensure that we provide the right environment for those startups to flourish and to establish their businesses, and accordingly be able to employ several of the youth that are available in the country and export the skill set and expertise to the neighboring countries or even globally. There have been several initiatives with the Ministry of Investment and International Cooperation, including Fikretak Shirketak, Egypt Ventures, and several other venture capital firms and accelerators that are running in the country. If we please move to the following slide. During the pandemic year, if we look at the economic growth, as Jan has mentioned, Egypt enjoyed 3.6% of growth, which was actually on top or leading the way compared to countries not only in Africa, but globally as well, because there were a minimum number of countries that enjoyed such a growth or even had a growth at all. Inflation declined. There was also a decline in the unemployment rates. If I talk about SAP and its investments in the country, we've seen that in the last 14 years, SAP has been serving the Egyptian economy. In 2018, the company has decided to make a big investment plan in Egypt and to support Egypt 2030. We have basically worked on massive investments, including the addition of a center of excellence in our offices in the country, which was established in 2019. And I'm very proud to say that this center of excellence is not only serving the African or the Middle East countries, but it's also contributing to global projects. And this is basically on the back of the young talents that we have in the market, who are very well educated and multilingual. So we are able to find resources, very talented resources in the markets, who are graduated with engineering backgrounds, who can contribute to the national projects, and who are basically becoming part of the center of excellence to serve the global communities. Thank you very much, Jan. I think I used my 10 minutes, and I would like to hand over to my next colleague. Thank you.
Hoda, thank you very much for this very informative presentation. I want to reiterate my earlier statement dear guests, kindly share your questions when it comes to Egypt, the region. Share your questions in the chat. We will pick up on them. And we will certainly answer those in that Q&A to follow. Hoda, thank you once more, and thank you for staying with us, until the end. It's now my great pleasure to introduce to you, our next speaker, who is Silke Bobken. Silke is currently Lufthansa's Group Senior Director, Sales for North Africa, Near East, and Turkey, based in Cairo. Her sales region consists of the North African states Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, and Egypt, as well as the major parts of the Near and Mid East region, including Turkey, Lebanon, Jordan, and Iraq, totaling to 12 countries, which all Lufthansa group carriers currently operate from. Ms. Bobken began her career at the Aviation Group as Key Account Manager at Miles & More in 2005. From 2009 until 2011, she was Manager Marketing Communications, creating and executing marketing concepts for Lufthansa Italy and London. Afterwards, she was appointed to Manager Revenue Management and Business Development in Frankfurt, where she developed and launched a new sales concept for the airline's European markets. In 2013, Ms. Bobken moved to Moscow as she was promoted to Director Marketing, Online Sales and Revenue Management in Russia and the CIS. In 2014, she took over the position Lufthansa Group General Manager Sales Russia, where she was responsible for the commercial development until the end of 2016. Before moving to Cairo, she was in charge for the airline sales in Northern Germany, based in Hamburg, and I'm very glad to have her, since she's talking today about Egypt's logistic connections into the Middle East and into Africa, and maybe already giving a little bit of an answer to the question, does Egypt qualify to be a regional hub? Silke, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Jan, and also thank you for the introduction and the invitation. So if we go maybe to the next slide, I would indeed look into the question if Egypt can use the unique geographical position that is having as a trade hub. So if we look into the Suez Canal, and if we look into being in the border connecting three continents, basically Europe, Asia, and Africa, it definitely has a unique positioning. There was a lot done when in 2018 the African Continental Free Trade Area was actually established, and the signing started today. 34 countries have signed the African Continental Free Trade Area and ratified it also. And it is in place since the 1st of January 2021. But still, there are a lot of challenges and a lot has to be done in order that the full potential of this can be used. There are, of course, challenges into the poor road infrastructure, into the railings, and into more infrastructure going also into the process. Well, as one official mentioned, it's definitely not an event that takes place and afterwards everything is working, but it's a process and it has to start. Well, the African Development Bank started that already 12 years ago and invested more than $8 billion in exactly this infrastructure. So more than 13,000 kilometers of highway have been renewed. There has been a development on 26 one-stop border facilities, and 17 corridors, Trans-African corridors, have been established. And the one for Cairo is Cairo, Gaborone, Cape Town. This corridor is especially important. But with all this, actually, it still needs a boost. If we look into the air cargo, for example, 80% of all air cargo transported to Egypt or back is still transported via passenger aircrafts, meaning no freighters. That means there is still a potential for Egypt to use the positioning it has in order to really invest into that even more. There have been quite some initiatives, like it was mentioned already, the Advanced Cargo Information System, NAFESA, which is definitely looking into the future, which is a fully digitalized system. It's blockchain based and definitely future ready. And I think it has to show now how this is going on. But if I speak now to my logistics colleagues, to Lufthansa Cargo, to also the working group now that has been established with the Arab Chamber of Commerce, we definitely see potential into connecting all the infrastructure into a multimodal system using the ports Egypt has, the railways, and we know there were some incidents right now, really updating that, looking into the airport systems and also the street system. My colleague Hoda mentioned it already. There was a lot done, but now I think the challenge is connecting these in order to really boost also the positioning. In order to reach that, long-term investments have to be done. And I think also the knowledge of the private sector and the involvement is needed in order to really use this even more and use also Egypt as a regional hub for the logistic center. This is my presentation so far. I'm looking forward, and I saw already some questions coming up, and I'm looking forward to more questions then in the Q&A. Thank you very much.
Silke, thank you indeed for that very fruitful remarks. And certainly there will be more questions to come up in a minute. Let me move right away to Engineer Taufiq. I don't know how to best introduce him, since if I start to introduce whatever he did and he is currently doing, I will spend the next half hour doing so. So
you don't have to, Jan. You don't have to. Let's go to the point. I'm going to
cut it a little bit short, Mr. Taufiq. However, he obtained his bachelor's degree in civil engineering at Cairo University, his master's of engineering degree at California State University, and an MBA at the San Francisco State University. He is the vice chairman of the Federation of Egyptian Industries since 2013, the managing director of the Cairo Poultry Group, the chairman of the International Company for Agricultural Development, and vice chairman of the International Company for Agricultural Production and Processing. He also is the chairman of Americana Egypt for cold storage facilities and El Hashimiya for land reclamation, the Egyptian Franchise Development Association, and the Egyptian Dutch Business Club. I could carry on with that, but for me, he's a friend, and he is the former chairman of the MCHEM. Yeah, and there is no one in Egypt to be as knowledgeable as he is. So, yeah, Mr. Tariq, yeah, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jan. But I have to admit, you know, between you and Hoda, you leave very little room for me to talk about Egypt. So let me improvise.
Yeah.
Well, let me take a different twist, you know, because first I just need to mention a couple of issues, you know, that haven't been mentioned, which is primarily a report that was issued by the Harvard Industrial Complexity Report 2 years ago that highlighted that Egypt is one of the countries that could enjoy a double-digit growth for the coming decade. For one simple reason is the diversification of its economy in a sense that does not exist in the entire region. It's the only country that does not rely on commodities as oil and gas, and the diversity of the economy in itself, you know, sets a platform for investments whereby the skill level of individuals is vast. Even the skill level can be at its minimum skill level to the highest skill level, but you will never start from zero in country when you invest, in this country when you invest. And this is one key issue that we always dwell upon, because with the reform in the country, you know, the growth can be multiplied exponentially because it will hit almost every economic sector as prescribed in the West. You know. So this is one issue that needs to be mentioned before I start. But my point is we need to look ahead, you know, apart from all that has been mentioned about the macroeconomic stability, the infrastructure, which are both very essential for any potential investment. But we need to look at where are we heading to? Where is the trajectory of the country, and where is the appetite? And in this respect, I just need to mention a few issues that are indicators for us as investors, as private sector. The first one of which, you know, is the report that will be, or the presentation that will be delivered by the Prime Minister, hopefully next year. It was scheduled to be presented last Monday, but in view of the train accident, it was postponed, and it is the second wave of structural reform in the country. And this is something that we work closely with the government with, notably as a federation of industry, and we are curious to see the outcome, because this will be like the most anticipated roadmap by which, you know, the government will have a checklist of tackling the red tape and bureaucracy that has been plaguing the country for a number of years. And this in itself, you know, is a game changer, because once there is a realization that there is red tape that is choking the country, you know, in itself, by the government in itself, is a very positive sign that we are moving forward in the right direction. So this is one thing, and I will have to keep an eye on this report that, or this presentation that will come hopefully next week, because it will tell us where we're heading. The second one, you know, that I also like to mention is the political stability, because for any investment in any country, political stability is quite essential. With the massive reform that took place that hit the lives of every Egyptian, you know, socially, economically, hit us in our wallets, rich and poor, you know, there has been a remarkable stability, and there has been no social unrest, unlike what happened in other countries that tackled reforms at a fraction of what has been happening in Egypt. This in itself, you know, I believe is a very strong indication that this country is here to stay, that it's stable, it has heritage culture, and, you know, the population has a sense of, you know, looking forward for a better life. This is another very important issue that needs to be mentioned. Let alone, you know, another issue before I delve into other details is the number of free trade agreements that Egypt is involved in, that more or less touches, you know, close to 2 billion population, whether that be Africa, the Middle East, Europe, South America, you know, Turkey. So, I mean, in this respect, I think this is a facilitator, or another gateway where it can be properly exploited, you know, once the reform aspect accelerates, as we anticipate in the future. But there are also other major issues that needs to be addressed. And let me tell you, I mean, the amendment of the public sector law that took place about 3 months ago is a game changer. It is a tool, a very important tool in unlocking, you know, the deadlock when it has to do with the public sector companies, which allows it to liquidate, to be transformed into investment companies. And in this way, it will be a vehicle by which the government will be able to more or less ease out of a lot of poor investments or poorly managed companies in the past. And there is also two significant signs, you know. For the first time, we had two major companies, a cement company and the iron and steel company, that has been liquidated and you know, filed for bankruptcy. This is a game changer, and we have to look at it carefully, because it just tells you the way ahead. There will be no room for government manipulation or government support for failing companies. This has been a legacy of 60 years, and I think these two issues, you know, or these two cases, you know, signifies this end of this legacy in a positive direction. The second one, you know, is again the establishment of the Sovereign Fund of Egypt, which is with a special law that gives it full autonomy operating on international standards by which the government is going to leverage all the unutilized assets and use it as a vehicle of accelerating the privatization of a lot of the dead assets that we have. And we are seeing finally a progress in this direction, whereby it will be investing in logistics, in education, in pharmaceuticals, in real estate development, in oil and gas. And I believe that this is also another key vehicle by which, you will be circumventing the bureaucracy while we are more or less fixing this bureaucratic aspect, So this is also a very positive side that keeps us looking forward. Another issue that is also have been a contentious issue is the role of the army in the economy, And then also the remarkable thing is that there are already 10 listed companies that have been seconded to the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Egypt to privatize with 100% ownership of private sector, two of which are already under due diligence. One primarily is the road concessions and the gas stations on the roads, which is one of the flagships of these economic ventures, and another one that has to do with the water bottling and the food industry. So I think this is also a very symbolical sign that the government had decided, that it's time to start spinning off, a lot of these ventures into the hands of private sector. And these are indicators where we as private sector eye to see where will we be heading in the near future and where will our money be put, because again, the notion that the government has been crowding out the private sector, I think will be put to rest, in view of the progress in this direction. One other issue that I'd like to mention, is that, we have passed through it very quickly, that Hoda said, is the rehabilitation of 1,500 villages. 1,500 villages, this is as a first step, and it will continue to include the 5,000 villages that we have. And this is one major investment, and the private sector will be the main beneficiary in the construction or the reconstruction of the whole setup. And I think this will be another vehicle of creating a proper balance between the rural and the urban community, and the rural community that has long been neglected, whether it has to be in the livelihood or the logistics or the quality of life at large. And I think this is another area that will create more stability, more social stability, more social inclusion. And it will allow, in view of that, it will also include it in all of the digitization efforts that will take place. It will not be exclusive to the urban areas as such. The other one, again, which is a massive area, is the universal healthcare system, by which, already I think 2 or 3 governorates started, and this will have to, supposedly materialize to include every individual within 15 years. I believe right now they're trying to cut it to 10 years, and this is another area by which, you will free a whole sector of medical services, of pharmaceuticals that has been subsidized with very poor management, whereby the private sector will play the major role on market competitive prices, with an insurance base that will cover all the expenses as such, and I think this will be transformational primarily for the healthcare system, for the pharmaceutical system, as opposed to what we have today. Again, I'd like to end the presentation quickly when we talk about Africa, because again, Egypt acting as a gateway to Africa. Africa, unfortunately, logistically has not been designed to be dealing with cross-African trade, primarily with colonization, all the ports and airports were deemed to be export vehicles or export hubs, to Europe. When you try to find, the logistics between Europe and Africa, they are far more developed than the logistics between 2 countries inside Africa. Again, there has been a lot of protectionism, lack of access of roads, lack of access of logistics. And like it's been mentioned, there has been a massive effort by the African Development Bank, to deal with this situation, but this is something that will take quite some time. Let alone, the incursion of China into Africa and the goods coming from China, noting the fact that surprisingly enough, that the average pay in Africa is still higher than a lot of Asian countries, and the cost of living in Africa is even slightly higher than that in several Asian countries. Yet, you know, when we talk about cross-border trades, you know, between African countries, when it comes to commodities, when it comes to food, when it comes to white goods, you know, surprisingly enough, you know, there is an advantage for the African countries to operate between each other, as opposed and have a competitive edge against Chinese imports in this direction. And this is the area where we are looking at primarily. Egypt has been investing heavily in trying to connect with Africa, both financially, logistically, and actually today, you know, one of the initiatives will be a full subsidy of 100% transport costs, you know, that will be covered by the government, you know, to African countries, and quite a massive reimbursement of support, you know, to exports to the African country. It's still a long road, but I think that's an indication that the country here in Egypt is more or less geared strategically and logistically to pivot towards Africa. It's true that our major trading partners are still Europe and the Middle East and the Gulf, you know, but we see that Africa is the future of our country. One last issue, you know, I believe that there is also a great opportunity when it comes, you know, in the post-COVID area with a lot of countries that are reshoring or nearshoring outside the Far East, you know, to the vicinity of the area. I think our country over here is also much more poised to be a regional hub to attract these migrating industries to relocate in a country like Egypt, you know, with all the facilities that has been discussed today. And primarily, you know, the red tape breaking and the reform that we should be witnessing in the near future. Thank you, Jan. Thank you, everybody. This is where I stop, you know, and I'm all yours. Thank you.
Engineer Taufiq, thank you so much. I could listen to you the next 25 minutes. Yeah, very, very interesting. Allow me to ask Silke Bobken and Hoda Manzour to switch on their cameras as well, please. As I would like to ask Sherif Rohaim to switch on his camera. Sherif is now, whatever time we have left, he is now conducting a panel discussion. I want to remind our guests to please share your questions with the in our chat, so we can take much of the time left for answering your questions. Sherif Rohaim is in Egypt in September 2019, represents the Germany Trade and Invest in Egypt as a regional director. Before, he worked 5 years in the Department for International Law of the ETIE, covering business law in our region. Sherif Rohaim will moderate the discussion with our esteemed panelists. And please, guests, shoot, give us your questions. Sherif, the floor is
yours. Thank you, Mr. Noether, for your kind introduction, and also thank you for to our experts for their very insightful presentations. And without further ado, I would like to open the panel right now. So if this is to you, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to pose your question, you can do that either directly via microphone or via the chat function. And as far as I can see, we already have a question. So it says, or the person is asking whether there is a visible growth in the sustainability field, for example, sustainable products and alternative to plastics. Is it trending as much as in European, Western, Northern countries? So I think this question can be directed to the whole panel.
Maybe if you allow me, I can start by sharing my view. So sustainability is one of the main goals of the Sustainable Development Goals, also of the UN SDGs. And I would not say that Egypt have reached yet the same level of awareness that is there in the European countries. However, I've seen a lot of the companies, specifically multinationals now, and the private sector companies who are very aware about sustainability. There are several startups as well who are operating in Egypt who are talking about sustainability measures and ways and means to help the country to be more sustainable. There is a lot of effort and there is a lot of opportunities also that would be available in the market to explore this further. There have been also several initiatives to clean plastics, for instance, from the River Nile. So it comes with the increased awareness of the importance of sustainability. I leave it also to my colleagues, Engineer Tariq and Ms. Silke, to comment here.
Sure, I would like to comment on that because there has been a significant breakthrough. Once the government eliminated subsidies, then economically speaking, every sustainability or investing in sustainable investments, started to make economic sense. Before that, was not viable at all. So what's happening right now is that, water recycling plants that has been ignored for the last 30 years are being reinvested in with a massive investment to recycle the water, whether that's drainage water from the Nile or from irrigation or from households, or from industry that has been dumped in the Nile in the past, desalination on the coastal area rather than shipping, the water from the Nile to the coastal areas is already becoming almost law, and all coastal areas will be desalinated. So, I mean, in this respect, even there is a new canal that will be using recycled water from the west of Delta that will be used as a supplementary source of water to irrigate 1 million acres and complementary to the groundwater. And this is the whole idea right now with the water scarcity in Egypt. There is a strong realization that our managing of our water resources is becoming a life or death situation. It's not a luxury anymore. So, I mean, let alone, that even when we talk about the government, for the first time, it had a green bond, that was issued and it was oversubscribed almost 4 or 5 times of $70 million a few months ago. And this is also the first time. So in this respect, it signifies that the government is finally aware in terms of green bonds and green economy and sustainability. Feed-in tariffs, that are for renewable energy, targeting 42% renewable energy by year 2035 is really, again, a very ambitious target, let alone that we are right now somewhere in the vicinity of 20% of renewables in the country. So, I mean, there is a whole list of initiatives that I believe that are actually work on the ground in this direction, that I see finally the sustainable mentality and mindset, having a circular economy, talking about fuel emissions, clean air is finally picking up with the government, and ultimately it will be filtered down to the population. Thank you.
Maybe I can add one sentence to that, coming from a customer point of view, and also from, of course, an industry that is highly impacted also with the sustainability topic. I see that at least for my countries that I'm in charge of, it's still coming up. So the trending issue in Europe is, and the matureness in Europe is much higher than in these countries. So I think it's starting, it's coming, but still on a low level. But I think there is, especially for this topic, a very high potential still in these markets, also for products, also for solutions and ideas if you would like to invest.
Thank you for these answers. And we have a further question in the same vein. So it says that we are in fact currently assessing, or is it actually a question? We are in fact currently assessing the possibility of sustainable organic Egyptian cotton for the use by German home textile manufacturers. What we haven't found, though, are Egyptian producers of sustainable recyclable packaging materials for such products as pillowcases, etc. Are you aware of any such companies? Thank you in advance. So this again is a very, goes to the whole panel, and it's very specific question, but
that if you may allow me, if just give me a chance, to dig it, with the industry, because they have much more information on this issue. I'm quite aware that there has been a massive effort right now into having more organic cotton in new areas that will be planted with mechanical farming, modern irrigation, apart from the fragmentation of cotton in the old land. So, I mean, in this respect, I know that there is an Italian company that is already using very high grade cotton on a small scale for their t-shirts at a premium value in collaboration with Egyptian farmers, primarily with the organic label on it. So, I mean, there are initiatives in this respect, but I need to get a more educated answer to answer this question properly.
thank you, Engineer Taufiq. And so, since time is running out, I would propose that we come to the last question. It's very general. So it is asked, what kind of regulation, license, or bureaucracy is to be accepted when German startups want to start their business in Egypt?
Well, if I may ask, maybe Hoda, you want to take this one and then I follow up?
Maybe just in general, not each and every step. So.
Okay. So there have been a lot of measures to ease actually the establishments of new businesses and give also some sort of advantages for new business and startups to start in the country. Of course, there are guidelines, but together with the Ministry of International Cooperation and the Ministry of Investment in the past, there was very clear guidelines about how you can start up a new business quite quickly. Maybe Engineer Tariq, you are very well versed in that as well from previous experiences.
Sure. There are many vehicles you can register a company in 3-4 hours. This is not a problem. We have many forms of, you have a single owner investment company, you have investment shareholding companies, you have limited liabilities. The process of registration is very simple and very fast and expedited. The question remains after that, and the type of activity that it will intake, that will require permits and license later on, depending on what action. And this is where it can get a bit cumbersome, But at the end of the day, I think, the ecosystem right now is transforming at a very fast pace, like it has been mentioned by Hoda earlier, by venture capitals, angel investors, and there are quite significant funds. Egypt, I think, is capturing close to 40% of startups in the whole region at large, even if not more. The talent is there, the population is there, and I think this is an area that is very much welcome, and we can help in this direction very much so.
Great, thank you, Engineer Taufiq. Thank you to all the experts, to the panelists, and since we have run out of time, I would like to give the last words to Herr Noether. Goodbye.
Yeah, thank you from mine as well to all of you. The question showed that it's worthwhile to have a German Arab Chamber of Industry and Commerce in Egypt. We are very much ready to answer all your questions. Kindly just drop us a line. We'll get back to you as soon as possible. I want to specifically thank our ladies, Hoda Manzour and Silke Bobken, as well as Engineer Taufiq, for this very insightful discussion, for these presentations, to shed a little bit of light on Egypt. If I had one question towards the end, I would have asked you, tell me about the role of Egypt in 5 years from now when it comes to Middle East and Africa. Is there any one of you, to want to give us, an answer within a minute, let's say, where does Egypt, stand, towards the region when it comes to Mid East and when it comes to Africa? Hoda, Mid East.
I would quickly mention the resilience that the country had last year during COVID, right? And with this resilience came a lot of vision and determination, okay, to move Egypt to the next level. So I strongly believe that Egypt will retain its leadership. It will move to new grounds. The projects that are happening on the ground that we see on almost daily basis support that view, and it is a diversified portfolio of projects. I believe that Egypt will continue to be the leader in the whole region. I'm referring here to Middle East and Africa as well.
All right, then you answered already. Thank you so much. Answered already most of the question, which I wanted to ask to Engineer Taufiq, since he had the part of Egypt towards Africa. Egypt's role towards Africa in 5 years from now, Mr. Taufiq, Engineer Taufiq.
Egypt, Africa role is a national security issue. Our entire history stemming from the Nile, coming from the center of Africa, we don't have an option or a choice, except to fulfill part of our identity, which is Africa, as much as our Mediterranean, as much as our Arab identity. We are a mix of identities, that is very unique to our history and culture. And I think finally, after President Sisi came and he took the effort to reconnect with Africa, which is a file that has been neglected since 1976, after 1996, after the attempted assassination of former President Mubarak, I think this is going on an accelerated mode, and we will see that the mere fact that Egypt is the second biggest economy in Africa, and let me correct you today that Egypt became the second biggest economy after Saudi Arabia in the Gulf. It's a report that was issued today. I think Egypt, with this accelerated growth in the area, will have a profound impact on Africa, whether we like it or not. It's our history, it's our future, and I see it happening.
I would assume we sitting in Egypt, we would like that. Therefore, we need to have, of course, connections. So an aviation hub Egypt, Silke?
Well, we are happy to connect Egypt to the world via our hubs in Frankfurt, Munich, Zurich, and Vienna, and offering the best connections. And definitely, we managed also through the pandemic to have a stable operation. So we were just very few weeks offline, and then we were online again, ensuring that all Egyptians, as well as foreigners coming to Egypt, and also the tourism sector, had the chance. And I think there is potential, and we are looking forward in order to offer again the connectivity and to connect Egypt to the world and the world to Egypt.
So once again, thank you indeed, all of you, the three of you, for your insightful thoughts. I want to thank specifically the Ministry of Economics and Energy for providing us a platform within these economic days. And I want to thank all our guests for participating. If there are questions, don't hesitate to get back to us. I wish you a fruitful day, and certainly additional great sessions within that framework of the Ministry of Economics economic days. Thank you very much for participating. Have a good day.
Thank you very much, Jan. Thank you. You too, everybody. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.